Now, can I go to our Vice Chairperson, and that's Pauline Tully.
And hello to all the witnesses here today, and thank you for joining us and for sharing your experiences with us. I suppose there's a few points and a few questions I want to make. I suppose Ireland, you could say, have a disgraceful history of almost trying to hide disabled people, or certainly treating them as a charitable model or a dependent model. And we saw how quickly that could change when we referred to Catherine's Law, and Catherine Gallagher was able to keep her disability payment while receiving her PhD funding, and rightly so. So I think more needs to change, and I was going to ask, is Alde and Emily, is there a best practice we could follow from a different country? I know, Robbie, you mentioned Norway. I mean, is there another country that has a better practice of doing this? I mean, I've had recent engagement with a disabled person who wants to start his own business, and again, he finds the supports are not there to enable him to do that. The supports are there to employ someone with a disability, but not basically to employ yourself. And it's just, I'm working on something with him to try and change that, but any advice you have would be most welcome. Also, I suppose this committee is tasked with the implementation of the UN CRPD, and so we need to interpret it properly and ensure that other government departments do so too. So I think, Robbie, we have to thank you for your legal advice there on Article 4(3)(7), and I think your register of DPOs, I think it's vital if the proper consultation is going to take place with the DPCN, or indeed with any government departments or local authorities. So it's just, again, how that should be done. I know you mentioned Deputy Wynne had put in a PQ on this, so I think as a committee we need to follow up on that and see that that's done. Like you mentioned there that you were the new experts. Well, I don't think you're the new experts, you're the experts who haven't been utilised or haven't been listened to up to now. So I think that would be very important. Jerry, you also mentioned personalised budgets, and I think that's so important as well. Like, I think if the convention is going to be implemented properly, the whole area of choice is vital. And I think people can't have choice unless they control their own finances, so that they can decide what they need in their life, whether that's a personal assistant or whether it's assistive technology or whatever. And again, the National Advocacy Service is vital so that people have the ability to make that choice as well for themselves. So, you know, again, I think we need to move to that. There's a lot of work to be done in this country before we get near that, but I think that's part of the role, or it is the role of this committee actually, to ensure that. So again, I would appreciate any help and support and advice that you can give us. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone?
Yeah, if
Emily?
I could maybe answer about Catherine's Law and best practice, and then I'll turn over to Emily for talking about being self-employed. Catherine's Law does not apply to me. I'm on blind pension. I'm one of 1,069 people in the country. That's out of 55,000 blind and visually impaired people on the blind pension. And I think, as someone, maybe Robbie or someone else said, changing from the blind pension to another payment is very complex. And this is just a historical anomaly. That's the only thing I can credit it to, because, you know, our rates, the way that blind pension is treated, hasn't been kept in step with disability allowance. So if I got a PhD bursary, which is something I'm intending to apply for in the near future, it'll be counted as means, and that's it for my blind pension. Gone. That's it for my medical card. That's it for, you know, my fuel allowance, my living alone allowance, my free telephone or free TV license. The whole gamut of extra supports just immediately goes down the tubes once you're deemed having more than 20,000 euros in your savings account. So there's this massive disconnect between the different systems, and I think it is just historical. I mean, I've been on blind pension since I was 18. I once had a phone call to the old age pension office trying to explain to them that I was coming off the back to education allowance and going on the back to work enterprise allowance. I was transferred to 5 or 6 different people because no one in the old age pension office knows anything about these things, and they don't know anything about scholarships and bursaries either. So, and then there's other payments such as incapacity benefit and the invalidity pension. And by the way, how can we still be using the term invalidity, someone who is invalid? How could we possibly still be using that term in this day and age? That is shocking. But it is indicative of us having inherited this historic system based on poor laws where local health boards decide on the deserving poor and what it is that they need. It's not rights-based at all. As for countries with best practice, I've been in a couple of discussions around this with groups like ILMI and Disabled Women Ireland, and there doesn't seem to be any country in the world that has got it right. What that means is that if we get our act together, Ireland could lead. We could determine what is best practice. We could determine the best way of implementing the UNCRPD and take the leadership role. It is possible for Ireland to do that. We don't have to copy other countries. So I'm going to pass over now to Emily to talk about all that's involved in being self-employed.
And actually, you took the words out of my mouth. Exactly that. It's like why we have a horrific human rights record at the moment with how we treat our vulnerable, how we've treated women. It's time for us to take a lead. As Isolde quite rightly said, I also haven't come across any country that's got it right, and I've been looking. I'm part of Creative Europe's EU Push panel of artists, and we're going to be going to Norway in January around a creative labs and a creative process around different bodies. So I will be then working with a lot of European artists, and I have raised this exact point with them to discover how does Europe treat artists and how does it support them in other European countries. And so far, it doesn't seem like anybody's got it right. So I think that yes, Ireland can lead, but also I'm happy to feed back to the committee as I do that work what I discover. Yes, actually, Pauline, just on setting up a company there, equally some artists do that, and that is our experience too, that then they are put into the you must succeed in 2 years on your enterprise. And again, this is just ableism. It's like whenever we do anything, we're just put into an ableist expectations. And as soon as we do anything, it's like our disabilities go away. They don't. And people don't overcome, I don't like that wording either, the disability. We achieve it with our disability. Just because we have a disability does not mean we can't achieve. But I think what all of this points to is a system that never expected people like Isolde or anybody on this call to actually achieve anything. We were just bumped away into institutions, and in fact Ireland, as we know, still does that to people, hides them away in institutions, which is criminal. So we are bumping up against a system, just as Catherine Gallagher did, because we were never expected to achieve. In fact, I can recall when I was in secondary school attending my eye doctor, who never spoke directly to me, always spoke to my parents over my head. And he sort of winked at the one time and he said, she might actually manage college. I just was like, what? Just the expectations, the system expectations of us are so low and so demeaning. And this all needs to change, because as we're seeing, people with disabilities do achieve, and also it shouldn't be based on that either. There should be equal support. You shouldn't have to be a massive achiever either. It should be like everybody, that they're all equally able to do whatever it is they can do in their life, and they're supported to do so. Thank you very much.
Robbie, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose I've just done talking about Catherine's Law. I'm about to do a Viva now at the end of October or early November to get my own doctorate, touch wood, and in PhD in Irish, not in disability studies or anything. But the access has been a nightmare to the library, etc. And this is Trinity College. It's not necessarily just Trinity or anything like that. It's just that's the system. It's not designed for visually impaired people to go very far, and that's we've got the lowest take-up rates in third-level education, which again has an impact on unemployment. But equally, in terms of blind pension, there are other anomalies that they do these assessments, so means tests. But for instance, it's impossible to get an accessible copy think about GDPR and all that, an accessible copy to send to the department of 3-month bank statement on the blind pension. How does that work? So, and they still regularly send people who are totally blind the means testing questions in print. These people may not know that they've even received this stuff. So this is how Victorian, how antiquated the thinking is. So, look, the system is very badly broke. I think the idea is to get rid of the blind pension because the numbers seem to be dropping. There's only about 1,000 on it, I think, as Isolt was saying, out of 55,000. And again, with the disability allowance, you can join it, get it at 16. Blind pension, you have to wait till you're 18. So I know what I'd be doing if I was 16 and blind, you know. So I think that they're getting rid of it by stealth, but through very obvious means if for anybody who's on it, you know. But also in terms of Pauline's question on the registration or the point she was making, I mean, it was clear from the Department of Children Equality, Disability, etc., their response to Deputy Wynn's question that, like, oh, that'll happen sometime down the line, there's so much to be done type of thing, you know. It's just that they seem to be approaching the CRPD with like it's some sort. It's like rabbits caught in the headlights type of thing, you know. And everything has to take so long. But like DPOs are supposed to be central, for instance, to the 2030 sustainability gain. So this is like immediate stuff. We ratified the CRPD in March 2018. Like this is stuff they've known about for a long time. I mean, how long do we have to wait? Will we be still alive when they grant DPOs? They're proper. No, I think it's just incredible carry on, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael. Could I make two positive, constructive suggestions? One with regard to Pauline. Thank you very much again for your questions and contributions. And I note what you said about the way we hid away disability in Ireland into asylums, into industrial schools, into mother and baby homes, whatever type of disability. Often there were people with disabilities within that cohort. I would love to see us coming to terms with that and recognising that as part of our history. The suggestion I'd make is there is a garden of remembrance in Parnell Square which remembers our heroes of 1916 and all. Now, I think our real heroes who brought about equality are the women and boys and children who went through these asylums, who went through these mother babies home. And we at this stage are beginning to achieve a certain equality. It's very obvious from today's meeting we still have a long way to go. But I think that should be recognised, and I'd like a garden, perhaps where the old Rotunda Hospital will be moving out to Blanchardstown, that there be some marking there of an equality park. That's the first suggestion. Session 1 on DPOs and registration, as Robbie is, there's a very small number of 6 at present. I'm very keen on the idea of DPOs expanding, and I would ask the department to have a look at, and I recognise some really good work done by this committee, excellent work on the UNCRPD and the budget proposals from this group, so I think that's important to recognise that. But with the DPOs, there's 3,000 charities in Ireland, there's more non-voluntaries, and a lot of the big ones, although they started off very well, close to their members, they've developed a corporate culture. And as you know, within a corporate culture, if you're not listening and if you're not accountable to members, you can make a lot of big mistakes. And that can happen. Not naming anybody, but we know from the scandals what has happened. So I would ask the department to look at Section 39 organisation, who are service providers, all right, but to look at them in terms of democratising their governance so that it isn't an exclusive small group of people on a board who are electing people themselves on the board, and their AGM is basically just themselves. So I'd ask them to look at that, and I think then there could be a lot more DPOs of led, directed and governed by people. I don't rule out organisations who support people, because I think the natural inclination for me and many others when we got involved first was we wanted to support. But we can also advocate, I think, as well as support. But I think that could be perhaps borne in mind. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair. I suppose just really to endorse the comments that have been made by the previous witnesses, some very powerful testimony from people's own experiences. I think just it's important to highlight that as well as the importance of all of the issues that people have flagged around social welfare, access to employment, access to supports for education and self-employment, it is also important that those who are living in different types of settings are also supported to access their communities as well, just in the issues that we've highlighted. And for some of those individuals, that they will need access to independent advocacy to enable them to do that, that they will need that additional support. So really just to emphasise the importance of that and not to lose track of those issues as well, and how people do need we have many people still living in residential services in Ireland, and that we want to support them to live a life that they are of their own choosing, whether that is in a residential service or whether it is to live independently in the community or live in supported accommodation. That is the aim that we would seek, and part of that, of course, is to support people to enable them to access community and cultural life, as is the committee's consideration this morning.
Okay.
I just want to come quickly back on Jerry's proposal there regarding Section 39 organisation. It's clear from paragraph 13 of General Comment 7 that service providers cannot be DPOs because of the possibility of conflict of interest. So, like, even if there was 100% of a service provider that the 100% of the membership was disabled, and there is a difference between clients and service users and members, just reminding again. So, but even if 100% of the actual members, i.e. board members or trustees, were disabled, if it's a service provider, it's not a DPO, according to the CRPD.
Okay. Thank you.